Check 1, 2. Fatherhood Think Tank.
Hey, we can go ahead and get this party started. Anybody else can get in where they fit in when they get in.
Yes, they can. Welcome, welcome. Good night, everyone. We are having, I hope you're having a enjoyable, restful. I think that the places where we based at, if you teachers, y'all on spring break. So Broward, I think, is on spring break. Um, Philadelphia. Um,
Dade
Philadelphia.
County, Dade County is too.
So Broward Day and
Probably Palm Beach.
yeah, maybe Palm Beach. Philadelphia public schools with all the things shut down. So people probably here and there, but that's okay. We're here tonight to take you on a little mission tonight because when I think about tonight's topic, um, I can't wait to hear some of the correspondence and some of the dialogue about it. So I'm Ron Osborne Williams, Dr. Ron Osborne Williams, the Fatherhood Think Tank um, cor um,
Facilitator.
cor- facilitator, curator, all the little fancy words you like to say. I'm just the guy that come in here and make sure we get on here and push the buttons if that's what you really want. Make sure we set up they have a certain name for it in different places. We're just gonna call it curator, the curator for the Fatherhood Think Tank. We have all the fathers here tonight, and we'll let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into this topic. I'm going to say the topic till we get all the way through with everybody introducing themselves.
All right, go ahead. You up, gray head assassin.
All right, now say age before beauty. Good evening, everyone. Larry Jordan, father of two, grandfather of one. It's been a pleasure just being with y'all all these years. Just want you to know in case you didn't know. And we're looking forward to go further. And good evening.
All right, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7 young adults, 3 young ladies, 4 young men, 1 grandson, and 1 granddaughter. So it's always a pleasure to be here with you, gentlemen. J.O. Terry, you guys up. You can introduce yourself, your name, and how many kids you got, etc.
All right, Terry Elliott. Two young, I guess I have four, but 2 young ones, twins, and 134, one 24.
Okay. And we have our youngest dad on here too. I don't know if he can get.
Yeah, Gen Z, right?
No, I'm a little bit before Jay,
Okay.
but I'm Justin Gibbs. I'm a father of, I call it 4.5 because my other half is missing. As usual, I'm always here to enjoy my time with you gentlemen. I have a 12-year-old son, a 9-year-old daughter, a soon-to-be 4-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old, and a soon-to-be 1-year-old son.
Yeah, that's it. So, and we're probably sure we'll get some more people to click on but if not, we'll go with this 5-man team that we got right here. Jay sitting on the bench, then we'll go 2 for 2. Go to 11 each 11. We'll go to 11, maybe 12, 13, something like that, extra point. So tonight's topic is one that I believe is extremely interesting. The difference between dating down and dating up. And it's funny because I think over the week I've been listening to some correspondence about why do we date who we date and how people date who they date, these different things occur. So I was thinking all week, well, it'd be interesting. I can't wait to really hear what the father's correspondence is going to be about who they date up or who they date down and how that affects what happens in their relationship. And then how that really affects their children and how their children are affected by who we date, because most of the time in our communities, sometimes our dating ends up with babies. So who we date usually becomes who our children's parents, our children's mother, or who their child's father become, just based on how they're dating and how they're not dating. So I'm going to, throw it out, and I know that Lightborn always can, throw up go up first up the bat and start swinging at the ball. So I'll throw it over to him and let him start us in this conversation, because I know he's already calculating some of the things, and so let's go ahead and see what he calculated thus far before I go too far.
With the dating down and dating up thing, I think I got so many thoughts about it, because for me, it's a sensitive subject to me, because I don't think that there's not a man alive that can actually overvalue or devalue another person. That's number one. Number two, being a descendant of slaves, understand, then it makes me feel like the fact that when we use that terminology, you understand, I think it's either, the terminology for me is worse than the N-word, and here's why. Because the N-word is just that. It's a word, as most time is used as a term of endearment. But when you start to put a value, we start to talk about valuing or devaluing somebody that either is good enough for you or not good enough for you, that's like taking the N-word and put it into action, right? Mm-hmm. And so to say dating down or dating up, the saying dating up is saying that somebody is just as good as me. Because most people, when they say dating up, they're never really equating the person as being better than them. Right? They're always equating the person as being equal to them. But when they're saying dating down, they usually equate the person to being less than them. And so I'm saying that to say this. I'm like, first of all, none of us are valuable enough to make somebody less valuable, and nobody's less valuable enough to make somebody too valuable. Right. I think that when you find what you need in a person, because every business transaction, be it every relationship. So don't think, because dating is just a relationship, and it's still a certain business transaction that's based on companionship, right? And so if that business transaction of dating is based on companionship, then we're talking about supply and demand. And so when it comes down to supply and demand, the question is, what are you missing from your life that you may need from another person's life that may not be on the same economic platform that you are on? I think it's more, if we was to use the terminology out there now, or the stereotype of dating down and up, then for the most part, most wealthy men will be dating down, because they always find women with less money than, right? And then, not to mention that when we talk about supply and demand, the supply and the demand are equal. We are different with dealing with different products when it comes to men and women. You understand? For the most part, when it comes to men, our supply may be our provision and our protection. But when it comes to women, and I'm just talking about traditionally, their supply may become may be determined by their beauty. You understand? Mm-hmm. And so when women think like, oh, I'm an educated woman, this and that, and I should be able to choose the middle man you want, I'm like, oh, hell no, you can't. Because it's a different supply and demand when it comes to productivity, when it comes to men, what we want. And what we want is not necessarily based on your intelligence. You understand? It may just be based on the way you look, because that's the conditioning of men, men particularly when we're seeking women. But when it comes to women, they be like, well, usually on our level of the supply for a man has to offer is the level on which he can provide or protect. Traditionally, I'm using traditional terms. And so I'm like, so we're dealing with two different commodities when it comes to men and women, which makes dating down or up extremely complicated. And I think most of the time they try to base it on socio-economical outcomes. And I'm like, that's not necessarily true, because the commodities for men is totally different than the commodities for women. And so when you may think about like, oh, when I make this amount of money, you understand? I'm like, yeah, but men are not so much interested in how much money you make. You understand?
Right.
That's just nobody. I mean, and most of the time, women don't want to hear that. But I'm like, traditionally, that's not even. And I'm going to bring it up because it's true. It's actually true in the Bible when you do study it. Even the Bible, not saying the Bible is sexist, but the Bible is very practical when it comes to just gonna be honest, looks. And so it pretty much describes the looks of David, as well as and Solomon, as men, as it described the look and the appearance of women, and predominantly women, because when you talk about Rachel and Leah, which is the choices that Jacob in the Bible, actually he wanted, I think it was a Rachel, and the daddy bamboozled him and gave him Leah. And they said Rachel was the more attractive one and Leah was the more less attractive one. And so since the beginning of time, the commodities for men may be looks when it comes to choosing a woman, and the commodities for women is provision and protection when it comes to choosing a man. So the commodities are totally different. So the dating up and down thing, it varies, because it's going to be very insulting when you really have to turn that mirror around on yourself to see if what you're truly. And I'm just going to leave it right there.
You're gonna just leave it right there. Well,
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting, and I actually agree with you. My wife and I were talking about dating just this week, as a matter of fact. And I said, we're going to have to celebrate a date. I said, did you know in November of this coming year, we started dating 50 years ago? And I'm like, she's like, 50 years ago. I said, oh, yeah. You remember I gave you that note? Say, do you like me? Check yes, no, or maybe. That was, but back in those days, and just like you said, men are attracted to the look. The look is what's going to attract us, and our hormones will take us the rest of the way. And so men think of, especially younger men, we learn more as we get older, but young men think of women, the better that they look, the more that you want them, the more that you want other people to look and be jealous of you, what you carry on your arm, you know, and that's the way you get points with the fellas, you know. But like the temptation say, beauty is only skin deep, and just keep living. And we hope that it doesn't go away, but many times it does, and then you have to depend on other things. But when I think about it, especially when you talk about dating, I mean, Kevin Samuels made a living of that up until the day he died. When you start talking about dating and who you want to date and who is a high value person, and like Lionel said, women take a look at many times the economics, especially these days. They don't look at necessarily companionship, that someone that is going to take care of me, that's part of the equation, but to someone that's going to take care of me economically in the way that I want to be taken care of. That seems to be the predominant thing, at least from what I'm seeing in today's youth, that they want to that women look at as value. Men, on the opposite hand, if you look at your Facebook feeds or Instagram feeds, all you seeing is the BBLs and everything else, and that seems to be what we're looking for. But I think when it comes to dating, that men can change that narrative in a minute just by changing their mind. Just saying, no, if they said in a minute, I don't want to see that no more. Women would change it in a minute because they want to be attracted to men.
well,
So go ahead.
well, let me say a couple of things. First, there is a new thing happening in our culture about we're seeing a lot of young guys, athletes, finding themselves being hooked up or in relationships with older women, like the one basketball player and I guess they call them video vixen or whatever the lady is. I don't really like to be saying people's name, but the situation is what we can understand. She is now pregnant with this boy's, she's dating him and pregnant with he's 21. Her son that she has from somebody else is 21. So you seeing this idea of these young guys who are coming in the leagues and the sports figures and all that. They got all this money, and the women that they're probably most attracted to are the ones that they had, was first experiencing their sexual anything with when they was kids. I listened to a young lady who I guess does pornography. I mean, is that, yeah, she does pornography. And she was saying that they had a Thanksgiving dinner at their house. And there was nothing but her young nephew's friends that came to Thanksgiving. And she was like, why is all these kids here? Who are these kids? And what she came to the conclusion is that all those kids have been obviously using media to look at her, watch her, see the things she's doing. So they was gonna have an opportunity to see her live in the flesh. So then that brings me back to this idea about, there's a survey that came out. Somebody did a survey just recently about BBLs. And they asked women, what do men like BBLs? And all the women said yes. And they asked men, and all the men said no, right? Now, it's not the BBL is what and Larry, you brought this out when you just said this a little while ago. It's not the BBL, it's the idea what the BBL means, right? The BBL means sex. It means that it means it gives you the vision of voluptuous. It gives you the vision of this person is sexual. So you don't
about exotic.
right. And this idea of in your mind you see, and then you say, oh, this person. And this is one of the things I found that has been always so interesting with women who have very shapely bodies and this and that. They're not very sexual like that. They're not like that. But in our minds, we believe that it is. And so women who are saying, how do I attract this man? How do I get a man? See men, it's like a crisscross of knowledge. Oh, I think this is good. Oh, yeah. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems we're having right now in our dating world of this, and our people being able to date is what we're looking for. Is it the same thing or is it different? We had some major differences in what people are looking for versus on what they really want. And that is becoming one of the big issues in this, if in question of if we dating up and down. I think Lightborn said one other thing that I really want to point out is that, and this is true, men don't care about all the stuff that they have. Like men will care about that about other men. They care about what kind of job he got. They care about what kind of car he got. What kind of education. They care about that for other men, but they don't really care that much about that for women. They could care less. I don't care if you. I don't care if you're a neuro-rocket scientist. That doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, that's power to you, girl power. I believe in that, but when I'm thinking about having a mate, I'm not thinking of, oh wow, she's a neuro-rocket scientist. Oh, I think she's going to be able to cook some good chicken and collard greens. I'm not sure that might happen. And again, that sounds very chauvinistic. It sounds very, but you darn sure when you meet a guy, and when people are meeting men, they be like, I want a man who's masculine. They don't want a man. Most of them don't want a man who say, I'm getting a BBL so I can go out here and do some twerking and get my fingernails done. They're not saying, oh yeah, this is the kind of man I want. So there are some things that like that it seems very superficial and it may seem some type of way, but it is a big part of how relationships are kind of looked at and established.
Well, I also think that that also pertains to race, just to kind of pivot a little bit.
Oh, here we go.
Especially when,
I was saving that.
oh,
I was
okay,
saving
well,
that, but go
I'll
ahead
put
and
it in your
bring it
pocket.
up now, because I was waiting for us to get to that. But go ahead. I want to hear this one because I got something for that too.
Okay, because you know, it appears, especially to what as we climb the economic ladder, it seems as though that it becomes more important that we marry someone what we consider in the same class economically as we are, and many times those people are not a person of color. Um, I I think that's the many times what the guys assume that they're doing, you know. But the question to me becomes, I've always said, well, listen, if you're economically your status is economically high, then you gonna bring anybody along that you want to, because that's who that you choose. But especially with our athletes, and you see, you know, they took one picture and of these athletes, and I saw they had like 10 athletes, and 9 of the athletes had white girls, and the white athlete had a black woman, you know, and they said, "What's wrong with this picture?" You know, but that says really just seems to correspond with race these days, the way that we're dating.
What?
You know, I
Go ahead, Gene, because yeah.
I was gonna say.
Rob, please jump in.
I was gonna say that's in ignorance when that happens, and I'll tell you, I think to equate and I think sometimes what it is like LJ was saying is you're equating ethnicity so to speak or race with a elevation of intelligence and stature, so to speak. I think people forget that a lot of times the benchmark is already placed within a certain community, and everyone's striving to reach that benchmark. You know, I think that you can find within, and I'll use the Black community as an example. For me, you can find all elevations within the Black community. You can find how, you know, what you deem to be, you know, the highly educated, the upper class, middle class, and lower class, whatever you deem that to be, because I think everything is subjective, right? I often tell people just because you have a PhD doesn't make you the smartest person in the room. It just makes you the person who can sit longer in the classroom. Education comes with experience, and knowledge and wisdom comes with age. And I think that's a lot of times people forget that. So in keeping in with the subject, are you dating up or dating down? I think that is based on who you pick to elevate you, because you date down when it's toxic, you date up when it elevates. And those are the two things that you really need to focus on when it comes to dating and realizing what type of relationship that you're in.
Wait, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Ron, I want to hear what you got to say, man.
Well, I'm going to say this because I think what you said, Gene, that there's been so much conversation around this almost interracial dating, right? Especially in our community, in our Black community, people are like gung-ho, and we talk about it, and we talk about it in such a vile way, almost like it is a war between Black women and Black men, and they have to go to other people to really show their true value and where they are and what have you, right? But I sometimes look at it is that if we stop focusing, and I say this all the time, and like Brian, he pushes this button a lot about stop always focusing on our negative, right? And let's focus on the world negative, right? Because what are the other people who are dating us? Why are they dating us? We'll say Black man dating a white woman because she's gonna be more submissive, and he gonna come up and he gonna feel equal to her and this and that. And then they come and say the Black woman date a white man because he's gonna provide more. He's gonna be able to do these things. But did you ever think about why the white woman is dating a Black woman and why the white woman is dating a Black man? What? Because those dating things go equally if you believe you're equal. If you believe you're equal to those people, dating them is an equality, not a come up, not like there's a special thing that happens there. Now, I say they have their reasons for doing it. My hypothesis is that white men would like to date black women because they still think of a patriarchy, racist mindset. That's just me, right? And they know that their white woman can always compete at some point with them, but they know that a black woman can't. See, it's that whole thing of everything white is right, right? If everything white is right, we could treat women bad, but she is still in this same category. She has privileges that I have because I have made whiteness important, right? I made it important. So she will have certain privileges. This black woman I date, she won't have the same equal, and she doesn't have this. She will always be steps. I got her as a woman, then I got her as a black woman. Same thing. Same thing on the other end as us as men. We think we coming up, we get this black, we get the white woman, and we in love, and she's gonna make me better. But sometimes she's doing that because she also now know that she has a step over top of you being in this relationship. And that is one of those ideas if you buy into the notion that there is some discrimination, some racism, some whatever that is in the world that says white is right and black is wrong, or whatever malarkey they come up with, then people draw to that. When I say you can have that same kind of relationship, what happens when you with a Latino girl? What happens when you with a Asian girl? What happens to you? You don't have is that the same dynamics? Is it different dynamics? No, because guess what? Something else happens there because those cultures sometimes really focus more on their culture. They're not focused on this fake. I think black and white is a fake culture, right? It's not a real culture. It's like, we have black, we talk about black and white, and then we bring that into everything we do. But when we look at other ethnicities, right, they don't believe in that. They believe in their culture. So no matter if you black, white, whatever color you all say a lasarola style, whatever little thing they do. It don't matter what you look like, all of them do it. And we sometimes get caught into that whole white, black, and saying that's culture. Well, it's not culture. It's racism. It's discrimination.
I would say it's cultural. Let me tell you why. And you're right, it is cultural. But I think the stereotype and the dating up and dating down, the devaluing up and the devaluing down is actually true. And I'm going to tell you why. I dated a few women in different cultures. I dated Spanish women. I've dated a woman that was close to white and Hispanic. I've dated Haitian women, Jamaican women. I'm just an international dating person. I was just open to that because simply because guess what? No science to it, but simply because I'm just attracted to people that's attracted to me. That's how I dated. It didn't have nothing else to do with any philosophical thesis, sociological experiment. It was just I like people who like me. I notice people who notice me. That's how I set my dating prowess. And so with that experience, and because I did have those experiences, even in my own culture, I noticed when I dated women of a particular culture, be it Haitian, whatever, they still had their own misnomers and stereotypes, even within the culture of being black, about being African American, even though I'm Bahamian American. You understand? But they had their preconceived notion because I didn't have any type of what they call it, accent to indicate that I am Bahamian American. I experienced certain stereotypes within the Haitian girls I dated, even the Bahamian girls I dated, even though I'm of a Bahamian descent. Jamaican girls I dated, and so everybody had their preconceived notions of who I was as a black person, and that valuing up or down was always down when it came to that. And here's another one you're not gonna like, but it's true. I even dated an African American girl who dad told me straight to my face. And I've had the same experience with just about every girl I dated. Most of the parents judged me on the dating down. I don't know whether it was because I was black, but I don't think it was because I was black. You want to know the truth? What I thought it was? And here's another factor that we don't think about. They judge me down, or they judge me even wrong, simply because I was a nice looking guy. And so simply because I was a nice looking guy, or at least a halfway decent looking guy, and a guy that will actually engage them. And so here it is, I would engage them where most guys will just tell them what they want to say. I'm like, if I disagree with you, I'm gonna disagree with you like right now. I'm not gonna wait later on and talk to your daughter about it. I'm like, no, I have a disagreement with you. And so I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with you right now, respectfully, but I'm still gonna disagree with you, and I'm not gonna be a yes man to you. And automatically I'm judged down. Oh, nah, he's no good. He's probably gonna break your heart, blah, blah, blah. Let some years pass, and then I hear some of the most atrocity. The guys who they did give to their, and this is what I love. Now, this is talking about karma. The guys who they did give their trust to their, they do it. Oh, he's a good one. Well, go ahead, do your thing. I find the stories out later on that wow, that guy did this. I remember one girl. She was like the family approved of the guy, and she actually supported the guy when he went through school. Right, supported him. He became a police officer, right? Supported him all through school. She worked, blah, blah, blah. They had a kid together. They're supposed to got married, engaged to get married, beautiful ring, blah, blah, blah. The dude just sporadically got up, married a stripper, and then married a stripper and left her, married a stripper, and moved on with his new life with the stripper and left her alone. This is true. And I always thought I was the slime ball. And to a certain extent, I thought I was until I heard that story. You understand? And so I'm saying that to say that you never can really, because only time can tell who's up and who's down. And so the fact that the family approved of him and disapproved of me, that was just nothing but a testimony for me, because I'm like, listen, for you to judge my character and don't even know me. You understand? That's what it all comes down to. It's a character judgment when you talk about up and down. I think only God's hold the power to really judge who have up character and down character. Man would never have that power, because all of us have down characters. It's not one of us good enough to have an up character to actually judge up. We can all judge down, but I'd be damned if we can judge up. So I think you ought to pray about your or whatever. But you know what? I think it comes down to one standard. Treat people like you want to be treated. Not judge them because how you was treated. And I'm gonna leave that right.
You know, I don't know if y'all are like this, but I still am. Maybe it's just because through the years it's just stuck in me. I have no issue whenever I see a black man walking down the street with a white woman. And that has never bothered me because that's what I've always seen. But whenever I see a black woman walking with a married man, I turn my head and I look, watching them going down the street. And the thing that jumps into my mind, the first thing that jumps in my mind is that I wonder if he takes her home to meet his parents.
Let me clear some up. You're talking about, you say when you see a black woman walking down the street with a white man, not a married man.
Right.
Yeah, I was
with a white man.
Because I don't think you're gonna take him home if he's married.
Yeah, right.
Oh no, with a white man. I'm sorry, I said married man. I meant a white man. And my thinking is, I wonder if he took him home. He took her home because black people through the years have always been so accepting of white women in their household. If there are very few household that there's someone that's married a black man, a white woman that married a black man. We didn't accept oh, come on in, oh, that's my sister-in-law, blah, 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 you know. But if you flip the script, black woman goes to the white household, there's always, it's a cultural issue. There are very few times that the parents are not angry, everybody's upset. How in the world could you do this to us? I'm gonna disinherit you, and it just goes on and on and on. So I look at that and I wonder, I think to myself, I wonder how that's going to turn out. You
can see it. Look at what happened to Harry.
I was about to say that.
If you want a perfect example, worldwide, look at what happened to Harry. And she ain't even all the way. She's just partly. And look what happened to Harry. They had to disconnect themselves even from the royal family because of that. Crazy.
That's such a deep cultural issue. I don't think that'll ever be resolved. And they can marry any other race. Now, like I said, they can go Asian, they can go Hispanic, white men, they can go Asian, Hispanic, whatever, take them home. Yeah, they may not like it, but they'll accept it. You take a black woman home, it's gonna be a problem.
Well, that's true for black women and black men because I think one of the most famous movies that garnered I think it's the first black actor to get a leading role, Academy Award for a leading role was Look Who's Coming to Dinner.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that spoke volumes about how factual of what we're talking about is as it pertains to yeah, and not to mention you got to talk about the propaganda that goes along with that. And the propaganda that goes along with that, you're right. In every cinema blockbuster movie, the white man can go into any he can infiltrate any culture and he's welcome. He's seen as a godsend, right? But when a black man is brought home in those same and integrates in those different relationships with different women, he's always the script is always different. So the script is very welcoming when it comes to white men dating cross culture. But when a black man dates cross culture, he's suspect and he's always going to be the either the antagonist or the villain at some point in that movie. And put that like this, and since the creation of cinema, that has been like that for years. So that is the propaganda that we're up against, particularly as black men, even within our own culture. And so if you've been villainized and demonized as being the villain, and then you're going to always be perceived as that until the narrative actually starts to change slowly. And so I think the narrative is changing because I'm starting to see a lot of um, uh, interracial relationships where they like the black man just as much as they like the white man. And so I'm starting, and I'm gonna be honest with you, when you come out of predominantly metropolitan areas, you'll start to see more interracial relationships than you would in a predominantly metropolitan or inner city area. And so, and it depends on where you at as well. And so, with that, we, you really again, you should. And I think my mother-in-law said is always date who you like and marry who you love. And so culture should never, I mean, culture or color should never be a factor. You understand? It should be an awareness, right? But it shouldn't be a factor in which you choose uh, to really love someone. Because if you guys, that love is going to happen organically anyway, right? And so, and that love only happened because you guys brought more value to each other, which is up, than devalue, which is down. So you can't we got to be very careful not to let too many narratives infiltrate uh, just our relationships and our understanding, because if you do, you could probably lose the best thing, you ever had in your life. And that person may be of another racial persuasion. So that's just something, we have to talk more about.
I think you said something important, like within your statement when you said to the extent I can't say it word for word, but to the extent you were saying learn the person that you're with, whether it's the same race or a different race. And I think that's important, especially when you're talking about inter racial dating or inter-ethnic dating. I think there's a lot that needs to be learned about that person, especially if you're just going to assume that just because I'm with this person, they're going to identify with me. I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make, is the fact that they automatically think that the person across from them will identify with them in every single situation. And you have to take into consideration that they don't, and there's an education process that has to happen within every relationship, whether it's me learning about that person or that person learning about me. I think it's important that you ask those questions and have those type of conversations, because don't wait for a situation to occur to realize that that person is not sympathetic towards you. You see what I'm saying? Because they don't understand what you've been through and what you are going through. And just like they may not understand what we're going through, we may never understand what they're going through. And so that's something else that you take into consideration. So I think, that's important that you said that. I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, this, how do I say? This is difficult because a lot of times we're talking and we're talking in the context of our box, and our box is highly highlighted, right? That's the other part. So we talk in the contents of our box. People see our box highlighted. You know, look at what's happening to Puffy right now. Look what's happening to Brother Love right now. Look, he is the world. He about to overtake R. Kelly as the worst, whatever it is they about to make him to be, right? Whatever it is, whatever they coming to some conclusion that he's about to be and that he done did and all these things, he's about to become the biggest of them all, right? Because it's a negative. Because it's something negative. And then we as a people feed into it a lot. I've seen people who defend. Listen, you want to know? Let's give you a perfect example. What's the boy that went into the church and killed all Dylan Roof? I've seen so many people, even the other little boy with the gun. Recently, he just had a speaking engagement at Memphis, who shot the man, and with the gun, he wasn't old enough to have a gun. You find people to defend them, even though what they did was 100% wrong. You find people in their community saying, well, they were kids, they were this, they was that. And then when we turn around and look at our community, what ends up happening is we go harder on them than the other people. So it almost makes it seem like they are justified in everything that they do because of, well, see, I got you to agree with me on what happened. Why can't it be that this young man in our community, his frontal lobe is not developed enough too? Not that it's his innate nature to want to do this. How about, we seen this in the crack epidemic, not the drug using, but the drug selling game, where you would make these young people who were selling drugs out to be the most ruthless people they were, but not understanding it was the ends that justify the means. When you're hungry and you're the only one who can probably provide whatever you can provide for the rest of your family, and you go down to the grocery store and they won't give you a job, but the dude on the big drug dealer say, don't worry, here's $300, just come stand out here, and then you can help your mama pay the rent. You can help, you can make sure your brother and sister have stuff for school, make sure y'all have food on the table. Listen, that sounds horrible, the horrible drug dealer. But that's also, to me, that's the American capitalistic way to survive. You're not doing that because if you think that a young man, listen, if I could go out and get a job at Fresh Grocers or at Publix or at Winn-Dixie or Kroger, if I could go to them places, get a job, and be able to really support my family or even support myself in a way that would make me feel, economically secure. You think any drug dealer could convince me to stand outside in the cold, in the rain, risking people coming to rob me, shoot me, you think you can listen? I start making a mathematical equation that, listen, it's less things I got to deal with here than dealing with over here, and I'm getting more money for less time and for less headache. And so I want us to so often to remember and think about that, because that's one of the things I believe that happens when we even start looking at our date. It's so much highlighted on what we do. Like, listen, look at all these reality shows. There's no reality shows like the ones that we are in. Where the baddie girls reality shows, the ones that's not out now, the baddie boys, the everything, fighting, fussing, and cussing, and no real secure relationships. No, and I have said this many times. We as Black men and Black women, I just think, have to remember that you are never dating up and down when you're dating yourself, right? But a lot of times you'll see people who believe that dating me, a Black woman, may feel like dating me is a date down. Regardless what your position, what you have, because it is I think it's in the mindset of the insecurity that we have around what we have been conditioned of the enslavement. And I know I'm getting all philosophizer and all this, but I really say these things for us to really think about it.
We're really checking you out.
It's just one of the things you really, when you start thinking about it and evaluating and thinking about, why why is this lady saying, and I go to the store, I go to the story every time. I was having dinner with a friend of mine, colleague of mine. We was having like a little dinner, and a white guy and a black girl came into the restaurant. And like Larry said, you know, I always want to know. Like that thing comes in my head. The guy to me, and again, I'm not a courier of what guys should look like, but I know if guys look handsome or not look handsome, if they look what I also know what women like in men. I know what they want. I hear what they say all the time. And this guy was with this young lady who I thought was a very attractive, um, dark brown skin sister, nice hair, everything. And the guy she was with was like, y'all remember the character Pat from Saturday Night Live?
I ain't watch it like that.
So Pat was an androgynous
Yeah,
kind
I
of
do.
person. Yeah, you remember Pat, right? So it just,
Yeah.
but kind of, you know, but wasn't in my instance very attractive, right? But that's just me, probably because I don't think men attractive. And let me say in the name of pause, I guess you say pause right there. But what I then thought of,
No Diddy.
right? Then I asked, then I asked her. I said, "Do you think if that guy was black, height he was, the weight he was, the way he looked, would she still be with him? Or do you feel that?" And you know what the girl said to me back to me? Well, they take better. They take care of us better than you do. And I said, how? Where did you get this? Where did you get this conclusion? Listen, you're sitting here eating with me. I'm paying for this shit you eat right now. And I'm just your friend. I'm not, you know, I'm not with you. I'm your friend, just having a meal with you. But show me the guy, the white guy from your job that says, "Hey, friend, come out and come eat meal. Let's talk. Let's, you know, this and that." They're probably not doing that. Now, I know what they will do. They'll whisper in your ear and tell you they'll give you this.
Well,
They'll give you the smack, 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 but they ain't taking you home.
okay. But that, again, that goes back. That plays into the stereotypes that we're talking about. And I think we need not, and particularly as middle-aged men, need not impose those stereotypes on our children. Again, give them the awareness, but to not impose those stereotypes upon them. So those stereotypes become inherited to them. I don't want my children inheriting ignorance. I want them to be ignorant organically and naturally, but not scholastically, which means I don't want to teach them ignorance. You understand? There's one thing to be inherently ignorant organically or naturally, and there's another thing to be ignorant scholastically because somebody taught you some information with wrong intent. You understand? So I have to make sure we have to always be very careful, conscious of that. I'm saying that to say this. P. Diddy situation could be two things for me and anybody who's looking. It can be a tellable moment, which means just gossip, or it can be a teachable moment. I think most times, most people are not equipped to make a tellable moment a teachable moment. Most people are limited to that news or what's going on with him or any crisis for that matter being a tellable moment. That's where everybody peak at. But if we're going to be really a part of these types of fatherhood think tanks, and any think tanks for that matter, then we have the responsibility and the accountability to make every moment a teachable moment. Now, what does P. Diddy's situation teaches me? First of all, I have to lead with the root cause that I'm like, okay, let's look at the whole situation. It's a man of influence. And so here this is a powerful man of influence, economically rich, whatever. And then you have sexual allegations. Now, how do those two marry each other? Well, I'm like, okay, so now I got to go to the root cause of how they marry each other, which brings me to that prostitution is the oldest profession in the world today. That's the oldest known profession in the world today. So now I have to go to the root cause. Okay, so if prostitution is the oldest profession in the world today that we know, then now I have to go back. Okay, so now I have to start itemizing what's going on. I'm like, okay, so let's so now who are remember I told you supply and demand. So the question is who the suppliers of prostitution and who has the demand. So who's on the supply side, who's on the demand side? Because holistically, and I'm talking about totally when it comes to humanity, we all at some point, ready? Because this is the root cause of prostitution. Because we're all prostitutes. We don't think we are, but we are. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we're naturally wired and socially and systemically wired to barter with our bodies. A fact. 90% of people barter with their bodies, whether you work with your hands or your head. And so when we start, remember I told you, teachable moment. And so we started talking about a teachable moment. So I'm saying, okay, so now you got to remember, because I'm equipped to have this moment and make it a teachable moment, because I dealt with this with R. Kelly. I saw this coming along and I warned them. Alyssa Milano, I wanted to ask you, I said, listen, the only way I can see you guys really making this a balanced field, and not that I validate devaluing women or womanizing or being a chauvinist or whatever, but to make sure that we don't do to men what men have did to women. Because guess what? Having revenge is not justice. Oh, y'all did it to us. That's not justice. And so you want to have a just outcome. I'm like, listen, to make sure it, because I know that men, you're just not going to correct or fix thousands, if not hundreds of thousand years of promiscuity in one generation. It's not going to happen. And so that is so, to make sure that we don't do to men what men did to women. I'm like, sweetheart, the hardest thing for me to tell you is you may have to legalize prostitution. You understand? Just to make sure that something that may have been, what they call it, when you give permission, submissive. You understand?
Consent.
Submissive today, what they call it?
Consent.
Consent.
Right. So something that don't be a consent today don't be a controversy tomorrow. And that's what you finding out. What was consent yesterday, we're allowing it to become controversy today. That's wrong. That's not justice. It's revenge. And so I think, and we have a show coming up talking about how to protect disobedient kids from dysfunctional adults. That's another show within itself. I'm not going to go into that topic, but we have to start to analyze the truth about situations. I'm a social worker, so I know about these things. I don't sit here, but I'm like, no, I have the experience to go with this. And it's not always what you said is cut and dry. I'm like, it's never cut and dry. People organically and naturally, I think up to the age of 12, maybe even before then, we barter with our bodies. That's just what it is. You may think you don't, but you do. I can guarantee every job any person ever had, you bartered with, again, you bartered rather, or did business with some point a part of your body. Now, whether you make it affluent or not, I'm like, yes, you're educated, but you're still bartering with your brain. And which means you're only as good as your brain, but you're not rich. And if you don't show your ass up to that job, you understand? Then that bartering process ends. And so I think to a certain extent, when it comes to the sexual trade, because it's very taboo, you understand, it's very touchy, because you know what? Most of us, particularly as adults, are guilty. And so there's never really an innocence in it, because we're all guilty of it. We can't really find the innocence or the justice that needs to be found in this situation. I can't sit here being a guilty man and say that I'm just enough to judge the guilt of another man. I can't do it. Not for the same thing I'm guilty of. Particularly being a male and the male privilege that comes along with the sexism in this world, I can't. So for another man to say, oh, well, I don't understand why. I'm like, whoa. No. You just as guilty as I think Jesus said it best. Let he. Notice there wasn't no women in that situation. This is particularly, this was a male situation in the Bible. Literally, it didn't say no women was involved. When that sexual scandal came up in the Bible, it was nothing but men young to old. And Jesus' response was, let he without sin cast the first stone, because he knew every last one of them men was guilty of sexual predatory behavior. And that's even more existent right today. It's not a man walking this earth right now that's innocent of it. So for men to comment on it, I'm like, man, I can't comment on it. Because I'm not as rich as he is, but guess what? I'm just as guilty of it as he is. When I exploited somebody emotionally, and just because he may have exploited them financially, I'm like, well, you know, there's no difference. Exploitation is exploitation. And all of us at some point have exploited women, be it emotionally, psychologically, or just economically, to get what we want from those women. Not to mention the fact that the deficit they had just found a companion when it comes to men and women. And so we're going to really have this conversation, let's have it in the context that we need to have it, as opposed to the facts and not our feelings. But I'm going to leave that right there. I went a little long on that.
You know, it's funny that you say that because you know, as Black people, we probably are some of the most conservative people. They talk about conservative Republicans and conservative. Black people are very conservative, and what I mean by that, I don't know if you've ever been told, but when I was growing up, there's two things that they said you will always get in trouble for. They said my dad used to tell me, say, son, stay away from white women, and he said, stay away from children. Those two things, you stay away from them two things. You can be predatory on anything else that you want to be, but those two things will get you every single time. That's what got Cosby. That's what got R. Kelly. It was the young kids that got R. Kelly because he said he was married. He was there dealing with underage at the time, even though they were older later. They said, no, you got him underage. You know, that's what got Michael Jackson. That's what he was a kid. Almost everything is going to be white women or kids. If Diddy gets got, it's gonna be because of probably ain't gonna be no white women. It's probably gonna be kids. You're dealing with children and some you're a pedophile in some type of way, and that's why you're going to jail. So when we talk about dating, you know, those are the parameters that I've said. I'm sure if you talk to those parents of those athletes or whomever who married the white women, you talk to their mothers, they probably say, "Child, I pray every day. I pray every day that something don't happen." You know, because we know as a people, those two things you mess with, you going to jail. You're going. And there's nothing you can do about it. You know, so we were taught, I know I was taught, and I'm sure that when you were raised, you were probably told something similar to the same thing.
Well, you talk about the talk. I mean, because all of us, and particularly as Black people, and particularly as Black men, and which I think it's I understand the intent, but the injustice that come along with it, I'm like, there is very much so an injustice because I'm like, I don't want to have to tell my children, talk about dating down and dating up. Imagine, here's another topic, raising down and raising up. And with all the what they call it, disclaimers that we have to raise our Black children with, that's an injustice within itself. And here I am telling them they can be whatever they want to be in one side of my mouth, but giving them disclaimers on be careful on the other side of your mouth. I'm like, hold on, I'm giving you a glass ceiling on this side of my mouth and giving you the universe on this side of my mouth. I'm like, no, hell no. And so while I understand the intent, the intelligence, we're going to have to fix. Because, and some things going to have to really be divine, because I'm going to have to go use some divine intervention when it comes to, I'm like, no, my child, my Black child is never going to, and I'm never going to teach them to be less than any other child on this earth. That's just not going to happen. You understand? And so, and then when injustice comes, me and God will have to deal with it, God first, before I have to deal with it, because I'm ignorant. But you understand? I'm saying that to say this, and again, I understand the intent, but at some point, when the intent is going to really shed light on the intelligence of what we're saying. You understand? You can't tell us to be the best we're going to be with limits. How can you be the best with limits? And that's what this dating down or dating up, raising, because guess what? If you date down or date up with that philosophy, eventually you're going to have kids and you're going to be either raising down or raising up. And that's what we have to face. And I guess that's the real root of this conversation. And so you may think it starts at dating down and dating up. I'm like, no, it starts at dating down and dating up, because when this thing includes children, now you have to talk about raising down and raising up with all those side conversations we got to have. We're trying to teach our kids the value of themselves while we value them at the same time. So I don't give a damn about the threat. The teaching got to be greater than the threat. And until we make the teaching greater than the threat, then guess what? Our kids will be raising our kids down, not up. But that's just me. Y'all gotta forgive me because I get on myself.
Let me say this though. But I think that I see this on a day-to-day basis, right? Where a lot of our generation are, and maybe a little bit, I would say our generation, the younger part of my generation probably, are very adamant about making sure giving their kids what they didn't get, right? Very much so. and they are almost doing exactly what you're saying. There's no limitation on you, right? But I think a part of the problem with that is that there is not just about race things, it's about being human being things that our kids are missing because you're overindulging them with things. It's almost what I like to call almost this enmeshment of giving them more than what they really need. And and so what you begin to see is kids are completely entitled at some point. And with entitlement comes disrespect. Entitlement becomes don't know how to accept and understand no. Don't want to follow authority. A lot of those things. And then imagine all that now, if we're even talking about that, where that goes into a relationship, right? Your way is the right way, and it doesn't matter what the partner says because you know your way is the right way. So you don't care. You're not listening. You're not arguing. You're not doing anything. You're doing it the way you want to do. And if it doesn't work out, you're going to get highly emotional and act crazy until you get the way that you want it, because that's conditioned to know. So these are some things we have to really be thinking about, like when you're dealing with people in relationships and you start to see, like, why is this person always nutting? Why they always acting like, why they doing it? It's their learned behavior from what their parents have given them. And then you may feel like you may be very, very attracted to them. You might be, oh my God, this guy is so fine. Oh, this woman is so sexy. Oh, they also may be very intelligent. Oh, this person is intelligent. But they still have this entitlement that I don't believe, and as they call it, that happens, that sometimes people have to get their Negro wake-up call, right? That's what they call it, the Negro wake-up call. And I don't call it a Negro wake-up call because I think everybody gets it. Again, this is one of those narratives that I say that everything that happens, we focus it and put it us. But it's everybody. Everybody get a wake-up call. You think you're gonna go out here and talk about and say something, dude, these people gonna get you. It's not just us they're getting, Go ahead, Gene. I know you got something for that.
Get in there, Gene, because I'm about ready to jump in again.
All right. So it's two things. One, I want to comment on something that Lightborn said with the kids. And I think what it is it's not so much that if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as a parent, it's not so much that you're teaching them with a glass ceiling. It's that you're preparing them to break that ceiling that people are going to try to put over them. Right. So I agree with you 100% because you do have those parents who say, you can be whatever you want to be. And then they give them the limitations on what they can't do because society. I think when you start to teach the kids properly, you're teaching them how to overcome those societal barriers and excel even further. So I agree with that 100%. I also feel that when you start to when you're talking about the dating up and dating down, it also deals with the self-esteem that you impart in that person who's choosing, right? Because we all make a choice on who we're going to allow to be in our life, right? So based on how I am, based on what I see I'm worth, it's truly going to affect how I see the person on the other side, right? And if I deem that the way they treat me is justified, the way they are with me is justified, whether it's good or it's bad, that's what I'm going to stick with. And oftentimes that also begins at home with the parents, like you were saying, Lightborn. It begins with the parents because I have to instill certain qualities and certain things that you should expect from somebody. That way you don't get taken advantage of. That way you don't have to do what you were saying is start to rely on the oldest profession in order for you to get ahead. You see what I'm saying? Because once you learn your value, your worth, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we sometimes forget as parents is to continue to instill, because we say it to them, we try to show it to them, but as they get older, we forget to keep repeating it. You see what I'm saying? And that's something that should be repeated throughout all the stages of life, not only when you're 0 to 5, but also when you hit those mid-teens and you hit the teenage years, then you hit the adult years. That's something that should be continuously repeated because we have to often remind ourselves consistency, especially with the message, is how you're going to get everything to flow. And once you're consistent with your message to your kids and you keep it instilled in them, They won't take crap from somebody else on the other side. They won't have a glass ceiling to worry about because they're going to break through every barrier that you give them. They're going to learn how to maneuver not only in their world, but also in the other worlds that are around them. They're going to be there. So oftentimes, I think what it is we have to remember to teach our kids not only to master the environment that you're in, but master the environment that other people won't allow you to be in.
Mhm. That's a
Well,
good
back, Ron, hey, anybody else? Let me, before I even say anything. My love language is God, Frederick Adams, Kevin Miles, and Jay. You guys want to chime in? Because don't feel, hey, this is a get in where you fit in. So if you got anything you want to add to this conversation, please hear it. Say it, because we definitely want to hear it and probably gonna need it. So please say something. If not, I'm gonna be hogging up tonight. Fellas, you guys, nobody wants to chime in? Frederick, Jay, Kevin, my love language is God. Okay, but I'm gonna jump in. Well, what Ron said about we think giving our children all this stuff is oh, okay, thank you, fam. I saw your response in the chat. Giving our children, we equate I guess we're not gonna say dating up, because we're talking about, again, dating up and down leads to raising up and down. So how you date is pretty much how you're gonna either raise your children. So if you're dating up and down and you're judging that way, that's the way you're gonna probably raise your children, raising up and down. It's a really good connection. I don't even know where that came from. I thank God for it. But because whatever you carry over from your date life is gonna probably manifest itself in your parenting. I think that any wise parent won't measure I guess the validity of how they're raising their children, or the equality of how they're raising their children in stuff, and equality of being measured in sustenance, and the difference between stuff and sustenance. And so with sustenance, my kids got two types of no's in my house. They got a no, and then they got a hell no. You understand? So no is just a second language for them. And I conditioned them well enough in those no's, because I gave them a lot of small no's to always prepare them for a big yes. Here I am, a man. I can tell you, I'm like, listen, without those no's, because that's where discipline coming in. And you're a God-fearing man, Larry, so you understand about this. And you got to understand, having a relationship with God, it equates to one thing, and it's one outcome. And that's for us to be disciples. Well, guess what? Discipleship actually works in every aspect of our life. People think discipleship is just limited to church. No, discipleship is just a scientific word for discipline, right? And so with that discipline, you have to actually, that's what it's going to take to really raise those children. And if you love them, you can't be scared to say no to them, because that's what the Bible actually means by who thou lovest, thou chasing. And so when we think, oh, that's being chastised, no, it just basically means chastisement actually just starts with a no. And that sounds really good, because it's really true. Chastisement most times just starts with a no. That's simple. But if you're afraid to say no, then you maybe have to question the validity on how much you really love your children. If you were too afraid to give them a no, because you're right, then it will lead to what Ron spoke about earlier. That would lead to more entitlement than empowerment. And so you need to raise your children with the empowerment of what it is to be a parent, as opposed to the entitlement of what it means to not be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna just leave that right.
Well, like Ron, and you bring up the point, and I think the point that you're making really puts this in play, right? Why are parents doing that? And what parents are, because there are parents who are not doing that. The parents, and you know what you find out? A lot of the parents who have made the decision to be parents together with the other parent have control over that. And they don't try to make up, because they'll say, you have me and your mother, so the behaviors you're doing, the things you're doing is inappropriate. We both don't agree about it. And it's not a conversation that is happening with just one parent. Both parents are there to be able to communicate to their children and the child about what should be happening, how they believe these things should be going. What ends up happening is we have a lot of situations where the children are in the ping pong match with the parents, and the parents are maybe even trying to prove more love. So they are aligning themselves with their child against the other parent, and in aligning themselves, it's not so much for the parent, the child. The child is the one who ended up losing because the child is not getting anything. What the parents are doing is I got an ally, so see, you just like this how you are. And look, even your child says it. But the child don't know nothing about how you is as a parent. They know how much you are and what you are as a parent if they spend a lot of time with you, and then they really haven't really determined their own understanding, because we see children all the time when you have had parents who have abused them still want to be with those parents, hang out with them, see them, visit them, be loved by them, all of that. So when we're saying that, oh, these kids already made up their mind, they know what their parents with this and that, that's not really sometimes the case. What has occurred is they're still developing. They're still trying to figure out. Now, when they get 32, they definitely know how much they like or dislike or whatever issues they have with their parents because they became adult. They might even be a parent themselves now. But in this real case that we're looking at, and really putting it in a place where a lot of love, right, is sometimes seen as a substitute for parenting. And this is what Gene was saying. If you're giving the child, but guess why we can't do that? Because we haven't did that. And this go back to dating up and dating down. We haven't did that in the relationship that we got in. So how you gonna do it if you can't do it in the adult relationship with the two adults? How you doing it with your child and parent relationship? So that's a big part of looking at if I'm dating up and dating down. It has so much more influence, not just on the relationship you have with whoever the dater suitors that you have, also then how if a child comes out of that dating suitor relationship, how you interact with that child and how you treat them and what you do with them. And this is phenomenal. I just had the little light bulb from the Fatherhood Think Tank light bulb just went over my head to realize how important this conversation is for whoever's listening. Like, share, subscribe if you like this kind of content that we're talking about, because these are the kind of things that is the little tidbits that is so powerful in what just was a reveal. Now, I didn't reveal that on my own. See, this is why we had a think tank, right? I revealed that based on listening to Lightborn, then listening to Gene talk a little bit, thinking about some stuff Larry said earlier, and putting all that and saying, hey, where does all fit? And bam, it hit you right in the head because you're hearing different people, different contexts, different fathers thinking about how this works. And we then start to develop how we see it to work. Now, that doesn't say my way is right, but it does let me begin to present this to the group. And the group to say, yeah, I can dig that. I can see it. But it also allows the group to say, well, I guess that just might be how you thinking it, but it ain't wrong. It's just I don't see the same thing. It's okay not to see the same thing because everybody don't got the same experience, So definitely, I'm thinking that is a really, that was just a light bulb moment for you to really think about that. The more we have these dysfunctional adult relationships, and we don't manage who we date going up or going down, we're not going to have the kind of functional relationships we want to have with our children because we haven't really dealt with the base relationship is between the other parent.
And two things, Ron. One, not even to go as deep, but you have those parents that also say, I don't want my child to go without, right? And so they tend to shower their kids with a lot of things in that sense. Because they're like, I want my kids to have everything. They're out there buying stuff that's needless for the kids. And so that's where you get that parent that doesn't say no, and then they don't understand why can't they curb a certain behavior when it comes to the kids, because of the fact that you've caused them to be entitled, right? And then so entitlement is actually something that's learned. So you've caused them to learn entitlement without actually realizing it, in the sense that you're over delivering what needs to be given to them materialistically versus emotionally, right? And so there's that first thing. The second thing that you also need to look at is the relationship that you have also, because sometimes and I'm going to stick in the step parents into the situation, right? And so sometimes you don't allow that step parent who has come in, who says, I want to be a father or a mother to the child, to do that. And in hindering that, you've also taught your child a lesson that there is no, how you say it, there is no, because sometimes that step parent is going to come with some of what they feel is what is correct, and that's a conversation that both of you have to have. And there's a lot of times where you have that blocking of, I don't want you parenting my child, or vice versa, and you can't tell my child what to do. I'm the only one who can, while telling them they're still an authority figure within the home. And you send that mixed message not only to that person, but also to the child, where they're going to throw their hands up and say, you know what? I don't even want to deal with them.
You- don't ask me why when you said you brought up the part about the step parent, and the first thing came to my mind was Life by Bernie Mac. You're like, I'd be the pappy. I'm a stepdad too, so I understand it.
You don't get no milk and cookies.
Right. I understand. Totally what you're saying, but I think there's also a flip side to this, and I'm going to speak to the more responsible parents, the politically correct parents. Where I did a youth conference at one point, and they was talking about that's what they talking about. They talking about, oh, these kids who don't have to work for their parents, the same parents we're talking about. They buy them anything they want. They buy them all these Jordans, and they got eight rated shoes with F grades, and they going back and forth and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. I said, all right. And so we're going heavy on the kids that don't deserve, right? And then so what I did was flip the script on them. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. I said, your kids who making the really good grades with the low self-esteem, what are you doing to them? I said, I bet you, if you have a good kid who makes really good grades, I bet you that you will spend $300 for counseling as opposed to $150 for Jordans. I said, so here it is. And so this is how we treat the kids who are doing the right thing. Oh, they got low self-esteem. All right. Well, you know what? Let's send them to counseling, spend $300. I'm like, but you ever thought to ask that kid, like, you know what? I have $300 for you. And I know, you're having a hard time sometimes because I know the kids bully you or tease you at school like this. But how do you think I should spend this $300? Should I send you to get counseling? Would you prefer to get counseling with $300? Or would you prefer to go to the mall and get you a pair of Jordans and an outfit? Which one you think will help your self-esteem more? And I think because we, again, politically correct, we're so used to those children doing what we want them to do. You understand? I think we lose concern of what they need to do, or what they need to do, rather. And so with that, they lose some type of independence when it comes to self-worth, because now they'll transition, they'll outgrow our approval process and grow right into somebody else, some institution or somebody else's approval process. And in the process of the whole thing, we end up losing them anyway. And so they never come back home to be the child that they could have been to you. And because we were overly protected. And that can happen both ways. We can be overly providing things to kids that may not necessarily deserve, because we trying to compensate for the relationship that we didn't have with their father or their mother. And then it also can be because we're overprotective about the kids that's doing the right thing, that we never really gave them the freedom enough to do their own thing. And when they get the freedom to do their own thing, then they wind up doing it without us, because they can never be good enough for us anyway. And so that's just my thought. I'll just leave it there.
I think I'm hearing what you're saying, and it's how can I say it? I think okay, so I'm gonna take it from a personal experience, right? Growing up, you had the kids with the Nikes, you had the kids with the Payless shoes, right? I was one of the kids with the Payless shoes. Now, for me, because of the way my parents dealt with me, I didn't really care if I didn't have the Nikes. I was who I was. You see what I'm saying? So I think when you're talking about the kids, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I want you to understand that I think that we do forget to reward the kids who are doing well. I'm not saying anything bad about that. I agree with that 100% because oftentimes it's kind of a disservice to do what you're supposed to be doing because parents forget to reward it so that you can continue doing what you're supposed to be doing. And when you fall short, rather than asking you why you fall short, you're punished until you get back on track. So I do understand what you're saying, and I do agree with that. But I also think there's a level of healthy self-esteem that also has to go with it too. That when you ask that question, you make sure they're not doing it because they don't know how to fit in versus they're doing it because that's what they like. And it's very subtle, but it's important to make that distinction.
Hey, Gene, you're saying something right now that's so prevalent to the idea of if we give our kids this, if we teach them how to fish, we don't have to keep providing them fish. That's what it boils down to. And because we don't teach them how to fish, we go and get them kingfish and say, here's a kingfish. You don't go get a little, we don't go get a little, we don't go get, the tapia, we don't go get a little catfish, we don't go get a little, that regular, little flavor. We go get them the kingfish. And then we say, here, the kingfish, look, you should feel better and you shouldn't have any problems. But that's not true because guess what? You can't make up with material things for emotional things. If a kid is missing you as a parent, if they're missing the other parent as a parent, listen, there's no doubt about it that if you have a parent who is being a single parent, right? And you really got to work and do what you got to do, you are away from that child, right? Now, let's just say if the father is estranged from you and the child, you don't have an opportunity to have somebody else who may not be as, but when you do have the opportunity, right? That will be a makeup to give the kid another opportunity to learn some new things about themselves. This is the part I keep saying to people. You are depriving kids of learning more about themselves when they don't get to know both of their parents. Now, it's one thing if their parent dead, right? But guess what you do get in them? When your parent dead, guess what everybody do all the time? They talk about, your dad or your mom was like this. Oh, you looked at, and they begin to learn behavior based on the people around them who was always acknowledging what their parent is. But when their parent not around and there's some disdain or some disconnection, what they do here is negative things. So they begin to take that on. And then this is what I say to people. We can say things about each other in relationships, right? And we strong enough to say, well, that's your belief, that's whatever. But for kids who you're telling them something about the other parent, that is a part of them. It begins to trigger that thing in them that may be the thing that you're saying about them that then might make them insecure or might make them, begin to act out or may even, and I'm always saying a bad thing, that may also activate them to do things completely different than what their parent might have been doing and how their parent might be doing. But they got to have the knowledge to know that. Jordans ain't going to give them that knowledge. Getting at the boat. No, I know that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying getting the Jabot jeans and getting to get all of new PlayStation every time. That's not going to give them that knowledge that they really need to be getting from you as a parent. Now again, there's parents who are in the house, got the kids, everything. They give their kids everything they want, but you know what they also giving their kids? That knowledge. They're making them go instead of getting to go, do something like even right now, Ramadan, right? We had a fire drill at my school, and all the kids at my school, large majority of my Muslim kids, so they dress up, they bring their rugs, they pray at 1 o'clock, they do all those things. But one day we had a fire drill, and when we came outside, there was a mother, fully garbed, with her 4 kids, I think 4 or 5 kids, and they was cleaning up the side of the school, right? And I was saying, well, they are really practicing the spirit in the type of things you're supposed to do during Ramadan, right? That mother is giving them the value of what it is, not just for Ramadan, but also her value of morals, ethics, character, things that she thinks is important. And more than likely, I'm going to say they probably had a dad, but the dad was probably at work. She had a pretty nice car. The dad is at work, but that was going to be a part of what they did to build those characters. And guess what? They probably came back to later that night and for dinner talked about what they did and they developed that and what have you and blah, blah, blah. That's what we're missing, because guess what? As adults in relationships, we don't do that. We won't even tell a person if we feel insecure about dating them if it's up or down. You know, we look, you know what I mean? People say that, you know, and I said this earlier. Listen, fellas, I mean, not you guys married, but you know, you can ask a lady and say, hey, you know, when you date, what kind of guy it is that you feel like you're dating down? What kind of the guy you feel it is when you're dating up? And you can ask that, men and women, I think.
Ron, for me, that's a tricky. You put it like that. You couldn't even say that around me. And I'm so serious. I've ended relationship with crap like that, because I just believe in being and I've always just been an activist and an advocate. That's just me. I'm just born to do it. But I don't believe in devaluing somebody else. I said, because guess what? Yeah, you're doing it today, but somebody gonna do it to you tomorrow. You understand? And I'm gonna be that same advocate for you tomorrow as I am against you today doing it to somebody else. Don't do it around me. I just don't believe in that. I don't believe. I'm like, man, we got it too hard, particularly as people and human beings, and but particularly as Black human beings, to have to add more stuff, you understand, to who we are or our worth. And so the fact that we can come, and I'm gonna be honest, we're talking about dating down and dating up. The fact that I found out that the origins of this conversation, right, matriculated in Black culture, which really pisses me off. I'm like, hey, you mean to tell me
right.
Society, the American society, and just the world, not even just America, but the world's been doing it to you so long, now you just do it to yourself. And so to see educated people have this discussion saying, oh, dating down or dating up, and in the same breath, right, they don't believe in acting white. I'm like, wait a minute. That's the exact same damn thing what you're saying. You're just saying it another way. Because what you did is you just found a reason to side with devaluing yourselves. But yet, you don't believe you acting white. That was one of them. Remember that we had that conversation like about 50 shows back. But it was a good conversation. But that's what I'm getting at. So I'm like, this is why we have to be so repetitive, you know, and so redundant in these conversations and keep that attachment to one. See how we have to talk about one show just to explain this show? You understand? Because that's the narrative that we up against when it comes to changing the narrative for the embellishment of not just our people, but all people. But I'm gonna leave it right there, Ron. We are way over time. Man, I really ain't.
We're not that over time. Come on, we just we actually still got about two. We actually honestly got 2-3 more minutes, to be honest.
You use that for the wrap up and then the promotion again.
We got about 2 or 3 minutes, but because we did start a little bit late on the sneak tip. So I just definitely want to give the opportunity. Hey, if again, I'm going to say this again. If you're watching, so we have 6 shows now until we get to 100, because this is 7 being done. So we have 6 more till we get to 100. We're going to have some extraordinary things. We're going to be working on something really big. We're just thinking about how it's going to operate. Can't give the secret out the bag just yet. We also, I think a really big part of this is I definitely want to thank the fathers for coming on. You know, the commitment to have to come on every week, and even if it's just to, you know, like, you know, some of the fathers just come to listen. And I think it's important, if they don't have anything to say, it's important to listen. And it is important to, and again, let me say something to some of I know we had a couple people that commented, and I just don't want to let their comments go. Had some lady out there, Karen, she said she always dates up. We also, let me see the other comments. Because I want to recognize our people who comment on us because that's a big deal for any comments that we get. We had Sydney and me fan page. They said, "Oh, hey, Dr. Ron, I love you guys." So people out there loving us. That's a great thing when we have people loving it. It's better than people saying, "Cancel, get these Negroes off here. We want to cancel." Um, but they probably wouldn't cancel if we did the Negro stuff. It's good to know that some people have good taste. I understand that it's some things that you might want to hear that you just don't know you didn't hear yet, from and who you can hear it from. So again, I just wanted to acknowledge those people, and other people, if you have, remember, like, share, subscribe, join us. As we want to get to 100 shows. What we would like to do is probably get to 1,000 subscribers by the time we get to 100 shows. Now that's going to take a major uptake, but I got a plan for how to kind of
And just to be clear, yeah, this is the 94th show. So yeah, we're 6 shows away from our 100 show.
right.
So
So
it's
yeah.
94.
I mean, you could just, again, with that being said, and our time being up, and me being starving because I haven't ate all day practicing Ramadan, want to say to you guys, thank you for tuning in, and man, this has really been a really, really wonderful conversation. I can't even imagine. You listen. If you tell me a place that you're having a conversation like this, invite me so I can come enjoy some of it too. Because this is better than MD 2020, ice cold in the back pocket.
Watch it now.
You hear that, right?
And listen, if you know if people know what I'm talking about, you from my generation, MD 20 ice cold in the back pocket was everything back in the day. Now I don't know that because I never drunk it. I'm just telling you based on the friends of mine, and they was into it. So with that being said, Father, repeat after me. I am.
I am.
I am.
I say I am.
I
I
am.
am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of
A
honor.
man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of
A
courage.
man of courage.
I say I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I
I
am.
am.
I
am.
am a man of respect.
I am a
I
man
am
of
a man of
respect.
respect.
Fathers, I say that I am.
I
I
am.
I
am.
I
am.
say that you are.
You
You
I
are.
say that we are.
We
We
are.
are.
Championship.
Come
Where
on,
Elder at? I'm trying to get it. Where Elder at? I'm trying to get it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And folks, if you listen to that chant, we say that we are men of honor, with courage and respect. That's important. Those are the things. Those are some of the true characteristics that men need to have, and men who are eventually fathers definitely need to empathize and be able to show in their life. So with that being said, hey, we're here tomorrow night, fathers only meeting. We'll be continuing this conversation. So I know it might get a little bit more deep, but we'll be here tomorrow night. And then if not, we'll see you next week on Fatherhood Think Tank.
Y'all have a blessed one, fellas.
All right. Enjoy.
You
God
guys have
bless.
a good one.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Happy Easter.